Quindi vedresti domani alle 22:25.
T'aimes bien coudre, Alfred? T'aimes bien coudre? Hein? Tu aimes bien coudre? T'aimes coudre? T'as le droit de parler, hein?
Nel 1732 ottenne l'incarico di eseguire gli affreschi del nuovo tempio dedicato a San Sebastiano e vinta la gara col collega Venerando Costanzo, egli avrà modo di esprimere tutta la
Mais
sua
fais-moi un sourire au moins.
dando luce a scene ricche,
Ouh!
teatrali e fortemente
My cultural identity has always been a blur to me. I would think that with age, I would grow to be more certain, but even in my early 20s, I'm not as certain anymore. With a mother who grew up in the villages of mainland China, constantly surrounded by both the beauties of wildlife and the truth of poverty, the culture of her hometown only knew of struggle. My father, on the other hand, was raised around the privileges of life, all the toys and clothes you could imagine, and more. His parents even had ownership over one of the most early color cameras, therefore would document the joys of wealth within their family. However, nothing is ever as it seems. What my father lacked was a sense of belonging in his own family, household, and dare I say, his culture. His father was Armenian, whilst his mother was English, and they raised their family in Alexandria, where my father was born. I find myself constantly in between two very juxtaposing positions, and even though I've moved alone across various countries over the past decade, I still carry this hybrid within me. If I were to be completely honest, I have experienced the struggles of how this could affect family dynamics, instability of racial, ethnic identity, and societal belonging. But yet, on the other hand, one could say how there's greater advantage in cultural fluidity and adaptability. I guess I'm still trying to figure that out. Around the age of 11, I was sent to boarding school in the UK, and this opened my mind to the new world of Western civilization. And now I'm here living in Europe for almost most of my life, from different parts of England to living in Switzerland for a few years. So I've had my fair share between both cultures, but I seem to always be on the go, therefore never having the chance to settle. So this led me to discover interest in how this came to be. Why is it that some societies hold a greater mission for looking out for each other, whereas others not as much? Are we too reliant on our own culture's doctrine and not what we individually want to do, who we want to be? The definition of my early days was Hong Kong. Growing up in this environment allowed my mother to hold greater influence to my cultural identity as I was constantly surrounded by the sounds, smells, and sights of non-Western doctrines. Although Hong Kong has been through various cultural shifts, being colonized by the British and now taken back by the Chinese, the city is almost desperate in ensuring they preserve the traditions of our land. I will never forget passing the same local bakery just down the street from where we lived. Every single day after school, my little feet would boldly stomp into a store of faces and aromas that became like family to me. They knew me by name and memorized my order, and when I visit nowadays, it's as if nothing has changed. One way that unity is expressed in non-Western cultures, or at least in my experience, is through communion over food. I recently found this beautiful body of work on Instagram by this user, Jico Films, and it's titled How Immigrant Parents Say I Love You. And I'll be honest, this made me feel quite emotional as my mother never grew up hearing any of her parents say those words, but would instead hear things like, "Have you eaten yet?" Over time, she had to learn that this was their way of showing care and concern. As I dug into researching some theories to back up this pattern of societal behaviors, I came across Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory. In essence, Hofstede identified 6 different themes within culture, or 6 dimensions as he calls it. Indulgence versus restraint, long-term versus short-term, masculinity versus femininity, tolerance of uncertainty, individualism versus collectivism, and power distance. But the dimension that supported my argument is individualism versus collectivism. According to his findings, individualism means people caring more about themselves than close friends. For example, putting the I before we. Whereas collectivism means putting more emphasis on care surrounding community or groups, putting the we before I. Individualism values personal freedom and independence. Collectivism values teamwork and loyalty to the group. In the 1970s, Hofstede got access to a large survey databases about values and related sentiments of people in over 50 countries around the world who worked in the local subdiaries of IBM. I then discovered a case study which dove into how various ethnic groups, Anglo-American, Asian, Hispanic, and Black Americans, may result in different behaviors on a group task. This case study was built upon Hofstede's theory concerning collectivism versus individualism. As quoted from the findings, individual and group responses were measured using a prisoner's dilemma task, in which participants could choose to compete or cooperate with another party. Then they hypothesized that the collectivist cultural group would show more communal behaviors than the individualistic group. This case study, although wasn't focusing solely on hybridity, it further supported how there's a clear distinct difference in terms of behavior from juxtaposing ethnicities. Studies like these help me truly understand the sociological state of how households and bloodlines can affect one's identity, but also psychological identity.
Today is an interview by Isabel.
So you're one of 4 daughters and a son. Do you think that growing up in that lifestyle, it would have been different if you were an only child?
Oh, yes, definitely. 那个时候很惨的，没有饭吃啊。所以呢，在我们家里，你看，actually 我们是兄弟姐妹，一共有7个。但是呢，我上面有一个大哥，一个大姐，他们因病死了，在10几岁的时候。我们的最大的礼仪就是以吃啊，照顾人，这是一个尊重，也是一个很重要的一个环节。
那么如果有别的人不是你的家庭来你的家，你会不会煮好吃给他们？
那当然了，当然。客人来了以后，我们也是给最好的自己不吃的东西，就给我们的客人。这是我们的一个非常我喜欢这个 culture。我相信我母亲给了我是一个最好的example， 就是怎么样用行动 to love your family。Instead, I told you I love you. Our culture. 他们从来不会跟你说我爱你的。Never we see, we never we see I love you this word from my parents. 但是他们用行动 to prove how much they love us, how much they care us, even those days. 所以呢，这个让我长大以后呢 ，not only me, I think we all many Chinese people appreciate 我们的父母亲。What they do for us. I was later recommended and introduced to this film Late Springs by Yasujiro Ozu, as I was told its message linked well with this research question. It's a telling story of Noriko, a woman in her late 20s who lives with her aging father. The film explores the tension between tradition and modernity, particularly through the societal expectation that women must marry and leave their parents. Although Japan's principles at the time were to marry, Noriko's adoration and emotional dependency on her father led her to want to stay home and take care of him. With Noriko's mother passing away when she was only a young girl, she felt a greater need to clean, cook, and look after her dad every day. Although Japan in the 1950s was still generally considered to be a collectivist society, there comes a point where one needs to look out for oneself.
お父さんの人生はもう終わりに近いんだよ。だけどお前たちはこれからだ。これからようやく新しい人生が始まるんだよ。つまり佐竹君と2人で作り上げていくんだよ。お父さんには関係のないことなんだよ。それが人間生活の歴史の順序というものなんだよ。それは結婚したって初めから幸せじゃないかもしれないさ。 結婚していきなり幸せになれると思う考え方がむしろ間違ってるんだよ。幸せは待ってるもんじゃなくて、やっぱり自分たちで作り出すものなんだよ。
Yet, because research should never just end here, I started thinking about how stating a place being plainly individualistic or collectivist may not be as accurate, as there are always more factors involved to affect the score of a theory. In this other article that I read, titled "The Biggest Culture Gaps Are Within Countries, Not Between Them," Harvard Business Review, this article dissects the various components that challenge Hofstede's theory to be less certain. Quote, interestingly, over 80% of the differences on these values were found within countries, and less than 20% of the differences were found between countries. One of the reasons for this is decades of immigration leading to more diversity of values within countries. They then described how countries are actually a very poor container of culture, because if they were a good container of culture, they would expect fewer differences within countries. I guess on the other side, this article also helped me with understanding the identity struggles of being a third culture kid, as with my parents being immigrants and moving constantly. I feel as though I'm part of that 80%. I guess I always fall back on the fact that I find myself in countries like Hong Kong, Geneva, or England, and never really feeling comfortable calling it home. Now I realize it may just be because these places have become a melting pot for various behaviors and cultural understandings. You love the huh?
I love the smell.
You love the smell. You love the smell.
Of the culture at that time, you know, children were in their domain and parents were in the others. As you say, it is a very individualistic situation.
So I'm guessing a lot of things were not discussed in the house. Like, people would go off and go to places and no one would be informed.
No.
Really?
No. I had no idea. Actually, I had no idea what my dad was doing. Sorry.
You didn't know?
Oh yes, yes. We went to visit the shop because when we visited his shop, I mean, a huge shop. Children are children. Like children ate on the children table, but we never ate.
Really? With the adults?
Never ate with adults. And then when we were together, they invited their friends. They would bring their children also.
And they would sit with you guys.
And then we'd have an adult table and a kids table with the staff helping us.
Yeah.
We actually never had any meal in family. I mean, in family.
In physical family.
Yeah, physical family. But it's
And that's Armenian?
No,
it's
this is actually quite British.
British, yeah.
Yes, because my parents were partying every day, every evening. My memory of my mother at that time was that she would come into my bedroom and kiss me goodnight, and that's all I have of her memory actually, other than the parties and the fun things which
Birthday parties.
yes really made their best for the children.
Okay, so in Alexandria, would you say that the British culture
Of course,
applied there quite heavily?
of course, absolutely. But before being part of the British Empire, it was actually protected territory of the British Empire. But previously, it was the French protected territory. Because Napoleon came to invade Egypt at that time.
Right.
So that's why the French culture stayed on quite
Permanently.
and then previous to that one, it was the Turkish Empire.
So they've gone through a lot of cultural
Different,
shifts.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the cultures stay on from generation to generation, and so at the end becomes a mixing pot of all different cultures. So I can understand my parents being in their bubble as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.